Let me ask you something personal. When was the last time you felt truly at peace? Not distracted, not medicated, not temporarily relieved, but genuinely calm in your own skin. If you're struggling to remember, let me tell you, you're not broken. You're not weak. You're just fighting the wrong battle. As Carl Jung, one of psychology's most profound voices, observed, what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. This isn't just philosophical wisdom. It's the fundamental paradox that keeps millions trapped in cycles of escalating anxiety. Your anxiety isn't the enemy you've been taught to believe it is. It's an alarm system you've been desperately trying to silence while your life burns down around you. This isn't about managing symptoms with breathing techniques or positive thinking. This is about recognizing that your anxiety might be the most honest voice in your head, a messenger carrying urgent information about what's actually wrong in your life. The brutal irony: the more you fight your anxiety, the louder it screams. But what if fighting it was never the answer? It's time to burn down a few pretty falsehoods. You've been told that anxiety is a disorder, a chemical imbalance, something broken that needs fixing. The entire mental health industry profits from you believing that your psychological responses to an insane world are the problem. But what if anxiety isn't malfunction? What if it's information? Your anxiety spikes when you're about to make decisions that betray your authentic self. It screams when you're in relationships that drain your soul. It attacks when you're pursuing goals that aren't actually yours, but were imposed by others' expectations. The psychological establishment wants you medicated and manageable, not awake to what your anxiety is desperately trying to communicate. As Jung observed, your anxiety erupts when your persona, that false self you present to the world, becomes so thick that your authentic self starts suffocating underneath. Think about your last panic attack. What were you doing? Who were you with? What decision were you avoiding? Your anxiety wasn't random. It was responding to a threat your conscious mind couldn't acknowledge. Maybe you were about to say yes to something that would destroy you. Maybe you were pretending to be happy in a situation that was slowly killing your spirit. The surface story is that you have an anxiety disorder. The deeper truth is that you have an authenticity disorder, and your anxiety is the only part of you still fighting for your real life. But this is just the surface. The real truth about why this happens is darker than you think. Here's the psychological mechanism that will disturb you. Your anxiety doesn't just respond to external threats, it responds to internal betrayal. Every time you abandon yourself to please others, every time you ignore your intuition for social acceptance, every time you choose security over authenticity, your psyche creates anxiety as a form of internal resistance. Carl Jung wrote extensively about psychic energy, that psychological force that animates your life. When you constantly redirect this energy away from your authentic path toward what others expect, you create what Jung called psychological inflation, followed by inevitable deflation. Your anxiety is the psyche's way of saying, "This isn't sustainable. This isn't you. Stop." But here's where it gets truly disturbing. You've learned to interpret this life-saving signal as pathology. You've been programmed to see your anxiety as the enemy because a society of people living authentically would be much harder to control. Anxious people consume more, comply more, seek more external validation. Your anxiety has been weaponized against you. Neuroscience backs this up. Studies show that people with anxiety often have heightened sensitivity to environmental and social cues. They're picking up on dangers and incongruences that others miss. Dr. Elaine Aron's research on highly sensitive people reveals that what we call anxiety is often hypervigilance, an evolved survival mechanism that detects threats to psychological safety. Your anxiety spikes in toxic relationships because it recognizes emotional manipulation before your conscious mind does. It attacks before job interviews for careers you don't actually want, because it knows you're about to sacrifice years of your life for others' approval. It emerges in social situations where you're performing a version of yourself that isn't real, because it can suck. And see, the psychic exhaustion of constant pretending. The cost of ignoring this guidance system is devastating. You end up building a life that looks successful from the outside but feels empty from the inside. You achieve goals that don't matter to you. You maintain relationships that drain your energy. You become successful at being someone you're not. But the most dangerous part isn't what others do to you. It's what you don't realize you're doing to yourself. Now comes the part that will make you uncomfortable. Your anxiety isn't just protecting you from external threats. It's exposing your shadow, the parts of yourself you refuse to acknowledge. The most anxious people are often those who have built their entire identity around being good, helpful, or strong, while suppressing their authentic needs, boundaries, and desires. You tell yourself you're anxious because you care so much about others, but really, you're anxious because you've abandoned yourself so completely that your psyche is in constant emergency mode. Your people-pleasing isn't generosity. It's a sophisticated form of control designed to manage others' opinions of you. Your availability isn't kindness, it's fear of abandonment disguised as virtue. Your anxiety often spikes when you're about to express this shadow, when you're about to say no, set a boundary, or choose yourself over others' comfort. You've been so conditioned to suppress your authentic responses that your psyche creates anxiety to prevent you from betraying yourself further. The people who trigger your anxiety the most are often reflecting aspects of yourself you refuse to own. That aggressive colleague who makes you anxious? They're expressing the anger you won't allow yourself to feel. That boundaryless friend who drains your energy? They're showing you your own lack of boundaries. That confident person who makes you feel inadequate? They're living the authenticity you've sacrificed for acceptance. Here's the shadow truth about anxiety. It often emerges not when you're in actual danger, but when you're about to step into your power. Your anxiety attacks before you speak up in meetings, because part of you knows that once you start being authentic, you can't go back to being invisible. It strikes before you end toxic relationships because your shadow knows that choosing yours self means losing people who only loved your false self. But perhaps the most disturbing shadow aspect, you might be using your anxiety as a sophisticated excuse. It allows you to avoid taking risks, making difficult decisions, or stepping fully into your power. I can't, because of my anxiety, becomes a way to stay small while maintaining the moral high ground. Your anxiety gives you permission to avoid the terrifying responsibility of living authentically. The people who drain your energy aren't doing something to you. They're responding to signals you're sending that communicate your availability to be drained. Your anxiety recognizes this energetic dynamic before your conscious mind does, but instead of listening to it, you medicate it, therapy it away, or blame others for triggering it. As Jung observed, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Your anxiety is fighting for this privilege, but first you have to stop fighting it. Now that you can see the game clearly, here's how everything changes. The paradoxical truth that will transform your life. Your anxiety becomes your greatest ally when you stop trying to eliminate it and start learning its language. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this feeling?" start asking, what is this feeling trying to protect me from? The strategic framework is simple but revolutionary. The anxiety audit. Before every major decision, check in with your anxiety. If it spikes, don't proceed until you understand why. Your anxiety often knows things your rational mind hasn't processed yet. Boundary enforcement. Use anxiety as your boundary detection system. When certain people or situations consistently trigger it, that's information about what you need to limit or eliminate from your life. Authentic choice making. Let anxiety guide you toward decisions that align with your authentic self rather than your performed self. The choices that make you genuinely excited, not anxiously excited, are usually the right ones. Energy protection. Anxiety often signals that you're leaking energy to people or pursuits that don't deserve it. Use it as a gauge for where to redirect your life force. When you master this approach, something profound happens. You develop what I call confident anxiety. You become comfortable with the discomfort because you understand its purpose. You stop trying to be the person who never feels anxious and become the person who listens when anxiety speaks. People who have made this shift report that their relationships improve dramatically because they stop attracting people who drain them. Their career decisions become more aligned because they're no longer choosing based on others' expectations. Their overall life satisfaction increases because they're finally living authentically rather than reactively. So I ask you straight, what is your anxiety trying to save you from that you're too afraid to acknowledge? What decision are you about to make that your deepest self knows will betray you? What relationship, job, or life path is slowly killing your spirit while you convince yourself you're being responsible? Are you ready to stop fighting the one voice in your head that's actually trying to protect your authentic self? Because everyone watching this will divide into two groups: those who will continue medicating and managing their anxiety while building lives that look good but feel empty, and those who will have the courage to listen to what their anxiety is desperately trying to communicate. Which will you be? Tell me in the comments. What is your anxiety trying to save you from? What truth about your life has it been trying to tell you that you've been refusing to hear?